Welcome to jBilling Telco in the lab. The purpose of this presentation is to show you features that will be available in jBilling 3.4, or as we're most likely going to be calling it, jBilling 4. That being said, these features that you are seeing today are currently being used by some of our customers. So again, everything I'm showing you is being used today. We have a couple of goals for this presentation. We want to use jBilling's 3.4 functionality to demonstrate several typical telco billing scenarios. We want to give you a better understanding of jBilling's telco functionality. And of course, finally, we want to give you the opportunity to ask us some questions. Now, before we move any further, I also want to iterate that this presentation is strictly functional. So it will not be going into any of the technical details. Feel free to ask your questions. If I'm not able to answer, I will let you know. Again, if the question is more technical, that is not the purpose of this presentation. I'd like to start with an overview of jBilling and how it works as a whole. All of the presentations that we do here at jBilling, when it involves sort of a scenario from sign up to invoicing and payment, we always sort of present this in the same way. And that's because jBilling works in a cycle, and that cycle does not change. So all of the new features that we have to show you occur in different parts of this cycle that jBilling currently has. We have products and plans, and these are the services that you're offering to your customers. So anything that you want to appear in your invoice is going to be a product or plan in jBilling. Now, that being said, in addition to those features, we also now have asset management or inventory management, and that can be applied at the product level, and we'll talk more about that as we move through the presentation. Products and plans allow you to assign pricing models, so it allows you to define how you're going to rate some of your products. We'll talk more about that as well a little later as well. Plans allow you to bundle or group your products together to offer them as a group of services to your customers. We also will take a look at that a little bit later. Your customers are the people who purchase the services, so your products and plans. Customers can be an individual, they can be a company, they can have hierarchies, and especially with telco billing, this becomes very important, and we'll talk about that as we move through the presentation. When a customer purchases services, we add them to what is called a purchase order, and this is a jBilling purchase order. It defines many different things. It defines what products or plans the customer has subscribed to. It defines when the services start. It defines when the services end, if they are ongoing or not. It defines, are the services prepaid or postpaid. They also define usage when CDRs are processed, amongst other various things, and we'll talk about that again later on in the presentation. The billing process is the core functionality of jBilling. This system or process is what generates your purchase orders into invoices. And there's a lot of configuration involved with our billing process. And the idea here is that when your billing process is configured to run, it will take a look at purchase orders, determine which ones should be generated into an invoice, and generate that invoice. Now, more importantly with telco billing, you have a lot of different types of services. You can have SMS, you can have voice, you can have data. jBilling will always generate a consolidated invoice for your customers. It will not generate 3 separate invoices, one for SMS, one for voice, or one for data. That's not how jBilling works. That's not the default functionality. So whenever an invoice is generated for a customer, you will see one consolidated invoice. Once your invoices are generated, you then want to get them paid. jBilling can handle many different types of payments. It can handle credit card, ACH, check, and so on. jBilling has many different payment gateways already configured as plugins in the system. We can configure the system to automatically trigger a payment when an invoice is generated so that the invoice is automatically paid. So there is an automatic payment method. You can also make payments manually, and you can also accept payments outside of the system and in another from another system, accounts receivable, for example, and have jBilling be updated from that system as well. So there's a lot of different options for payments. Today we're going to take a look at manual payment, but with a little bit of a twist. It's going to be a manual automatic payment, just in terms of what I can show you for this demonstration today. Again, we'll talk more about that when we get there. So that's a high-level overview of how jBilling works. So what we're going to do now is talk a bit more about the scenario that I will be presenting to you today. And the reason why is because we have some new functionality here for those of you who are familiar with jBilling, and that has to do with company hierarchies. jBilling has always had the ability to create multiple companies within the same instance. So if I click on this drop-down menu here, you'll see that there's more than one company configured in this instance of jBilling. What we've done is that we've extended this functionality so you can create a parent company with one-to-many sub-companies. Now, there's many reasons why this would be useful. Some of them are because it gives you more flexibility in how you configure your structure or expand the structure of your services, so it helps you to grow your business. Companies who have MVNOs or resellers or service providers and so on, you're able to better manage them. And this is because you can assign different rates, different products, different invoice templates in this parent and sub-company structure. So to give you a better visual of how this works, we have Independence Telecom here, and previously to this functionality, you were able to create different companies, so company B, company C, company D, and so on. With company hierarchies, we can have some sub-companies. So in this example, we have the parent company as Independence Telecom and sub-companies Brilliant Mobile and Ocean Blue Mobility. In this scenario, Independence Telecom is a retail and wholesale telecom provider, and for years they have sold VoIP services before branching into the mobile telecom industry. So 1 year ago, Independence Telecom started to offer back office services for other mobile telecom operators, so effectively acting as an MVNE. We now have the two MVNOs under this program, Brilliant Mobile and Ocean Blue Mobility. So that is the scenario that we're taking a look at today. More specifically, we're going to be working in Ocean Blue Mobility just because of the time that we have here. But the idea is that Independence Telecom is acting as an MVNE, and we have MVNOs under the MVNE who are selling the services to their customers. So to start, we're going to log into Independence Telecom because I want to show you a bit more of this functionality. Okay, so I've logged into Independence Telecom, and if I go to the customer screen, you'll see that we have this field for company name, and we can see that these customers belong to Ocean Blue Mobility. The reason why we have a parent company is that Independence Telecom can then log into the sub-companies, impersonate that user, and see what that company, and sort of monitor the billing for that company. That may not be something that you want to do. You could log in directly as Ocean Blue Mobility. You would not be able to see anything else. But I sort of want to show off the security features that jBilling has. So as the parent account, I can impersonate one of my MVNOs. So this link right here, I'm just going to click on that, and I can select a child entity to impersonate. Because I've configured the system to have these two child companies, I can impersonate these at any time because I am the parent company. So we want to impersonate Ocean Blue. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now we've logged in Ocean Blue Mobility, and I can get out of that at any time by clicking on this X, and I return back to Independence Telecom. We can see that the same customers are here, but there's no company listed because this is a child company or a sub-company, and it doesn't really care that there are other companies, or they don't really need to see any of the parent data as well. So it's a way to manage your sub-companies for the parent company, as well as allow that sub-company to manage their own billing. Okay. Moving right along, we're going to dive into talking about our products. So that was the first step in our overview, is the products of jBilling. Products, again, they are all the goods and services that you want to appear as a line item on your invoice. So here we have some examples of products. We have international rates, monthly service fees, MSI, DSN, and so on. Whatever your products are you're offering, those would be products that need to be configured in jBilling. What we do with our products is we sort of define them further in that we assign a pricing or a rate to that product. Now in this example, I'm showing a rate card because an international rates product is going to have many different rates. You have many different countries, many different locations, and so on, and this is very specific to telco billing. There are different pricing models that can be assigned to our products to define rates in the system without having to create tens of thousands of products to define those different rates. What jBilling has is route rate cards and route rate card tables. This is getting a little complex for where we are currently in this presentation, so I'm just going to leave it at that for now. We are going to go into much more detail about the route rate card and route rate card tables a little further along in the presentation. For now, it's good to know that you can set up a specific rate card for a product to help define the many, many different rates that you have that are applied to that specific product. What we can also do at the product level is assign inventory or asset management. The benefit of asset management is if you have devices or SIM cards or phone numbers, basically anything that you want to keep track of, anything that, you know, hypothetically would leave a warehouse, gets shipped to your customer, that would be considered inventory. You want to know which customers are using which of those products, and if a customer is using that product, other customers should not be able to use that same product. So SIM card, for example. You don't want multiple customers using the same SIM card because when their data is recorded for CDRs and mediation, you need to identify which customer is using those services. If there's multiple customers using that service, it gets a little, you know, you can't really assign that particular product that's being used to that customer. And that's just one example. In jBilling, I'm going to be moving through the system using this menu here at the top of the screen. We've got our products. All of our products are listed by category, and that just helps us to group and organize our products themselves. So for example, SMS services has many different products already existing within it. We can also add assets to our product categories, which we can then add to our products. We're going to start by adding a product just to show you how that's done in jBilling. Every product screen looks exactly the same. So I'm showing you this screen anytime you create a new product, it's exactly the same. I have to give my product a description and I have to give it a product code. We can also assign GL codes, so this has to do with accounting. That is also possible at the product level. Here, most importantly, we have all of our pricing models that come out of the box with jBilling. So these are standard pricing models. If you wanted to use them today, you could. Sorry, just bear with me one moment. If you wanted to use them today, you could. And they range from being sort of very simple pricing models. So for example, metered is a very standard pricing model. If you were selling a phone, you would have, one BlackBerry Q10 is $600. 2 is $1,200, and so on. So it's a very standard pricing model. We have graduated, which allows you to include a particular quantity for free. After the quantity is used up, the customer is then charged a particular rate. We have tiered in volume, so that's based on how much or the quantity that the customer is purchasing. And then we have these rate card pricing models. In this case, we want to assign the pricing field to rate card. We want our currency to be US dollars. And with our rate cards, we have many different rate cards in the system, and you can have an unlimited number of rate cards in the system. Again, we'll talk a bit more about this when we get to the rate card section. But for this example, we want to assign the route rate card ID to SMS MMS services. This is the rate card that will define the price for this product. And the product code pricing field name is service code. Again, we're going to take a look at why we need to configure it in this way when we get to our rate cards. But basically, we're creating links in the system. We're associating a product to a rate card and different field names so that the system knows to assign the appropriate rate when mediation runs. I'm going to go ahead and save changes. And we now have a new product in the system. Just to save time, we won't add any more products in jBilling. Ultimately, the process is the same. You add a name, product code, define the price, and save that product. One thing I should mention now as well is that everything I'm doing in the user interface live for you right now can also be done through an API call. Now I want to talk about asset management. So I'm going to find a particular category here. And I'm just going to edit this category to let you see the asset management. Now we did do a webinar, so there's more details on how asset management, you can configure it, how it works, and so on. That video is available on YouTube. But ideally, or overall, what the concept is in your configuration of this asset is that we need to define when that asset is available and what is the default sort of stage in the asset management, and when it's saved on an order. Because once that asset is saved to an order, it's no longer available for you to assign to any customer. So for this particular configuration, we've got these stages. Let me get back to our product here. And here is our asset management, or our product with asset management. What we can do here is a couple of things. We could edit this product if we wanted to. We could take a look at our assets that exist, or we can add an asset, which I'm going to do right now. So we have a missing asset. As you can see, the status is initial because that's what we set as our default, and we have the other statuses available to us here as well. I'm going to add the asset, which can be a number, letters, whatever it is that your asset is, and I'm going to save my changes. We're redirected to a screen where all of the assets are available to us. You can see that we have many, many pages of assets, so there's no sort of limit on the number of assets that you apply to a particular product. We can filter for different assets. We can filter for a particular status so that we can always keep track of our assets at all times. Again, that's a high-level overview for our assets. We do have a video that goes into deeper depth on that concept. So what we're going to do now is move on to creating a discount. So we have all of our products configured. We are going to talk about plans a little later on. So we're pretty much ready. We could charge customers for services that we've configured as products. There are also ways to configure discounts for your customers. As you can see here, we have several discounts already. We have a $10 discount. If I just click on that, we'll see it over here on the right-hand side. This particular discount is for $10. This particular discount we have up here is for a 1-month free promo. It's a 100% discount, and it's period-based, so it lasts for 1 month for whoever customer is assigned that particular discount. I'm going to add a new discount so that we can talk about this in a little more depth. When you create a new discount, and you can create as many discounts as you want, we need to give it a discount code, so much like the product code that we saw earlier. We need to give it a description, and we need to define the discount type. So the discount types that we have here is a one-time amount, a one-time percentage, and a recurring period-based discount type. So what that means is I could give a one-time discount amount, like the $10 that we saw. I could give recurring period-based, so that was the monthly discount that you saw, so 1 month free. It was scheduled to only be available to the customer for 1 month. And we can also do a percentage. So in this case, we're giving a 10% discount when this discount is assigned to a customer's purchase order. I'm just going to save this. Now that being said, there are many different ways to assign a discount to an order, and we're going to take a look at that a little bit later on. But for now, we've just configured a new discount to offer to our customers, and we'll see the flexibility that we have when we assign that particular discount to a purchase order for a customer. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fun stuff. So this is where we're going to start talking about our data tables and route rating cards. We're going to move into configuration for this. This area of the system defines or helps you to define many different things without having to do any customization or writing any code. What we want to look at right now is our data tables. Later, we're going to take a look at the route rate cards. We're just going to switch over to a slide for a second. Rate cards, again, they enable you to have thousands and thousands of prices based on different parameters. So if a customer makes a call from Florida to Jamaica and the system needs to know how to correctly rate that. Route rate cards takes care of rating services that a customer uses in different locations. Especially with telco billing, if you have a cell phone and you use it in Florida to call your mom, for example, you're going to be charged one rate. If you go to New York and you call your mom again, you're using the same services but in different locations. So the system needs to know about this. And that's why we created route rate cards and data tables, because it helps jBilling to do this. This is a very customized area of the system because every company, it's different. When we talk about mediation, you'll see that there are plugins involved in creating a mediation process. When we run mediation, a purchase order is created. So CDRs are processed in jBilling either in real time or a batch process. jBilling's job is to translate those CDRs into billable information. Billable information typically means that the result is a purchase order. So the purchase order is going to define which customer those services belong to, what services were used, what are the rates for those services, and when to apply that to billing. When were the services used? In order to do that, the system accesses the products and plans and services that that the customer is subscribed to, but it also needs to access the data table and the route rate cards that are configured. Data tables is really tree routing. So that means there's a path to follow. The system searches amongst linking data tables until it can apply a product. In this scenario and in this configuration that we're looking at today, they're used for product resolution. However, data tables can also be used to define other things. Overall, what data tables are is a generic mechanism for mapping external information to internal jBilling information. So for example, another customer that we have uses data tables for file processing, so porting of customers. The route rate card in this scenario is, or in all scenarios really, is they are only used for pricing resolution. So the data table in this scenario is used to define or find the product that is being used. And in this case, it's based on a prefix. And then the route rate card defines the pricing to apply to that product. And then the system applies that to our purchase order so that we know what the services the customer used and what that rate is. So in jBilling, we have our data tables, and we're going to upload a data table. Now this is very customized. If I don't have one of these data tables configured correctly, we're not going to have anything run. The same would apply to your business or any business that you want to start. For your MVNOs, for example, we would need to analyze your what it is that you want to have happen in terms of your data tables and customize that for you. Now, basically, the customization is all in CDRs. Oops, that's the wrong CDR. Sorry, CSV files. Excuse me. So this is the data table that we're going to be uploading and creating right now. The important field here is this next route. This particular data table doesn't have one. If we look at another one, we can see the next route. So again, these CSV files are tree routing. They look at the prefix that is being defined in the CDR, and if there's a next destination or next route, the system then looks to the next data table and defines where that product falls in. If there's a next route, it goes to the next table and the next table until it defines that specific product that was used. I'm going to close that. So we're uploading this particular CSV file. To do that, I'm going to add a add a data table. We're going to call this one call product. And I'm going to upload a file. So I'm uploading this file that we see right here. So I'm just going to exit that. I'm going to save changes. Now, what I also need to do is to define a few other things, because it's fine for the system to see that data table, but it doesn't really know what to do with it until I apply some matching fields. So this helps the system to define the CDRs that are coming in. Bear with me as I fill that in. So this matching field is destination, and we have one more matching field that we need to apply as well, and that's going to be record type. So again, this is very customized to the scenario that we're looking at today. It could be completely different for your particular setup. Oops. But we do need matching fields in order to have the system be able to define what it is that it's processing. So that is a high-level overview of our data tables. Let's take a look at our route rate cards now. So what we've done is we've completed the definition or the tree routing structure so that the customer can define the product. What we now need to help the system define is the pricing. So here you can see that we have many different, we have 3 pages of different rate cards. In this example, we're going to take a look at a particular rate card, and that's ACN 500 voice. So this one is already configured. We basically configure them in the same way. What is uploaded here is this CSV file, and again, once the product is defined, the system can then apply a rate to it. So these are the different charges here for the different products. And we can also define things like time. So, for example, if the first 10 seconds of the call are free, if the customer hangs up after 10 seconds, we charge a particular rate for the first 60 seconds, and then for the next 60 seconds a different rate applies, and so on. So there's ways to define complicated pricing for the products that are on your route rate cards. So that particular file is already uploaded here. So we could also pull this from the system by clicking on that rate CSV file link, and you can see I've pulled it out of the system again. So the benefit is that once you save a route rate card or a rate table to jBilling, that information is always available to you. What we need to add is a matching field. So similar to our rate table, or sorry, our data tables. In this case, I want to add a product code. And again, this is customized, and it depends on what it is that what it is that has been customized for you in mediation. Ultimately, everything that's configured here is what jBilling needs in order to process your CDRs and process mediation in a way that gives you billable data. Okay, so we've saved that. That's great. Now we have our data tables and our route rate cards completely configured. So what we're going to do now is configure our mediation. So again, mediation is very much linked to the data tables and our route rate cards. What I've done here is pre-configured mediation. So we're going to scroll down and take a look at our plugins. This area of the system is where all of the magic happens, so to speak. Without these plugins, jBilling would not run. jBilling would not be able to do anything. The plugins that we're interested in right now are the mediation reader and processor. So again, these are predefined based on this particular configuration in this particular scenario. The reader is very important because it tells the system how to read the CDRs that are coming into jBilling. Here is an example of CDRs that I will be processing in just a few moments. We need to know what the date format is, for example. The reason being that if the date format is incorrect in the CDR, the system will not be able to process that correctly. So I've actually also pulled that same CDR out in a different format. So this is just a WordPad file. If we take a look at this, here we have the date. Just point that out to you. So we have the year. I'm just going to move that over a bit. So we have the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, and the second. So that matches the same value on our reader. There's other fields on here which we'll get to in just a moment, but the system needs to know that, otherwise it doesn't know how to define that CDR for that particular customer. We would end up with an error if the date formats did not match. We've also have a processor which, to my knowledge, is changing. In the future, it's not necessary to have a mediation processor configured for our mediation. Those are the two plugins that we require to configure mediation for jBilling. Now, again, mediation is always something that is customized. The reason being is that it's different for every company. You have different fields, different information coming in. So we need to analyze that and customize mediation to accommodate your needs. Mediation is located on this menu here in the configuration area, and you can see that we don't have any mediation process configured currently. So we're going to go ahead and add that now. What I do is give it a name. I assign a job launcher, and I give it an order. Now, the job launcher is basically utilizing those plugins that are configured for mediation. And I'm going to go ahead and save changes. We've now configured mediation, or a mediation process. You can have multiple mediation processes. It does not just have to be one. You can have one mediation process just for SMS, one for just voice, and so on. You could have many different mediation processes. As mentioned previously, mediation can be processed as a batch process or as in real time. What I'm going to do later is I'm actually going to upload this file to show you the results of a mediation process. So show you what happens when CDRs are processed and translated or transformed into billable data.